Now we welcome Mr. Kartik Desai. He is the founder of What's Up Bharat, a social enterprise developing an integrated platform and network for democratizing art, new media, and programs related to social changes in India.
Hi everyone. Just waiting for a mic to arrive. Just waiting for a mic to arrive. Hi. So I must say, after hearing the whole day of speeches, I'm not sure how much more I have to add after listening to such amazing motivational speakers, artists. But I do want to ask all of you a question. Can you just go ahead to the next slide? I just want to start following up on what Ajay was saying by asking you guys, are you satisfied? How many of you are satisfied? How many of you are satisfied with what's happening in the country right now? If you just raise your hand, if you're satisfied, just raise your hand. So only 2 people. How many of you are satisfied with yourself? Happening in your own life? If the answer is yes, then raise your hand. So a few more. And the third question, you can just go ahead, is an open-ended question. Right? There's no yes or no answer to this. This is the question you really think about. What is your destiny? What is India's destiny? And I'm trying to connect your individual, personal quest for desire and destiny with something that's happening in the country. So this is the idea of this talk. And let me just ask you 2 more questions. How many people here think that India is the greatest country in the whole world? Best country in the whole world? No question about it. Alright? How many of you here think that India is a terrible place? Terrible. It's got poverty, prejudice, pollution. You know, our country is going to basically destroy itself. My opinion is that many people often find themselves in these extremes. So we have a small, short, 2-minute video that I will show you guys, basically asking this question, are you satisfied? Trying to present both sides of this issue.
Are we ready for a healthy dose of creativity and consciousness? Stimulation of mind and spirit and our own responsiveness. Tell the truth and trust the people. Simple words till we really ponder. A billion souls, each trying to find our mission. We live life and enjoy, but also criticize the system. Let's honestly compare both sides, face facts, and ask ourselves the ultimate question. Are we satisfied with the nation, with ourselves, who we are, our overall situation? खुद ही को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बनने से खुद पूछे बता दे दी नजारा. The subconscious played tricks, national pride, false and justified. So many reasons our wonderful nation has given us to be on the yes side. We soar on the shoulders of giants, answering their ancient call, invoking their holy names. The wheels of time turn over and over. Truth alone stands invincible and always triumphs. Bruised and battered, but we survive, even thrive on the global stage. Our traditions and ideals etched like the names of 3 immortal warriors on India Gate. इस धरती का जादू, इस कुदरत की देन, माटी उतरे सोना, मिट्टी के पुतले बने भगवान, सरफरोशी नेकी बनती, भूल चुके हैं हम वो रास्ते, लेकिन रूह की आवाज फिर भी पुकार रही है. कलाकारों की कल्पना और कल्प से बनाए देश, सिर्फ अपने ज़हन पे कायम है. दुनिया की नज़र हम पर टिकी है, सारी कायनात हम पर टिकी है, बची सिर्फ सत्य की बुनियाद है. Tell the truth and trust the people. Are we really that proud of our country? What do we all really feel? The power of the dark side forces us to ponder for much longer. Freedom, inclusion, unity. इनका मतलब क्या होता है? भ्रष्टाचार, आतंकवाद, गुर्बत और बेरोजगारी. लेने निकले नाम, मुँह से निकले गाली. Subversive inactivity that dulls our nation's potential, where the minds are full of fear, the heads held low, where knowledge is extensive, where the world is broken into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from depths of falsehood. Our leaders don't trust us to the truth. We don't trust them to lead, and tirelessly we strive to shackle ourselves in mediocrity and greed. where the clear stream of reason has lost its way into the dreary desert sand of death habit, where the mind is poisoned and led into ever more depraved corruption. In that hell of a prison, my father, I fear my country, has gone to sleep. अब क्या सोच रहे हो? Time to vote. क्या बात है? आपको मालूम है दुनिया में हम सबसे खुश हैं या थे 2009 में बाकी देशों से ज्यादा, और आज क्या आप बोल सकते हैं कि आप खुश हैं? Are you satisfied?
Once more, I'll ask everyone, are you satisfied? I hope you understood the motivation and the intent of that video, which is basically to try and show that, I strongly feel that this is a country where there's lots of very amazing things happening, and it's the greatest country in the world. And at the same time, the opposite of that is also true. It's also true. You've got sub-Saharan Africa, some of the worst poverty, the most terrible situations in the world existing in our country. You can't deny it. That's why they call it India and Bharat. We're two countries. So we have to somehow appreciate that. And also what that video shows you is that we're one of the most optimistic nations in the world. This is a survey that's done by Pew in lots of countries. And on average, whether it's America, whether it's Iran, whether it's China, whether it's Pakistan, on average, most people, 20, 30, 40%, say that they're satisfied, most people are not that satisfied. In our country, we're only second to China. And China, as you know, is a different political system. So this is something to keep in mind. So I just wanted to very quickly, before we go into Desire and Destiny, just give a quick introduction to my own destiny. So I was born here in Delhi in 1980. I lived here since I was 10. You may be able to tell from my accent that when I got older, I moved. I spent half of my life living in New York. My dad was a diplomat, so I went to UN school there. I then decided to become, successful. I wanted to be successful, so I went to study business, and I wanted to, make much more than 40 lakhs in a month, not a year. However, I realized later on in my life that I'm also interested in social change, in developing, doing something interesting. I studied international relations. I worked in the private sector as well as in the public sector. And you can just kind of go through all of that. And at the end of it, I came back and started a company called What's Up Bharat. So What's Up Bharat, not too much about it. It's a social enterprise. It's a company that is building a social network for young people, for the motivated youth of India, and an inclusive platform for different young people who want to get involved in social issues, and specifically by leveraging the power of arts, by leveraging the power of painting, photography, digital media, design, music, and using art as a medium to actually reach out to more people. So we have a very simple tagline, Kala Karatna Karma, art, ideas, action. We have three businesses. We're an arts business, we're a media business, which is the website, and we're an events business, program business. And we also say this is a three-step process for any young person. First is you need to be inspired. In order to be inspired, art can sometimes be helpful, right? Second is, tonight you're interested in an issue, like let's say corruption, or gender, or foreign policy, or environment. The second issue is then you have to know something about it. So you need to be engaged. That's the media. And of course now I'm engaged. You've inspired me, you've given me some media, some polling. Now I want to do something about it. And then we partner with NGOs. So that's just a very quick background to myself. So now, like some of the other speakers here, I just want to, in a very sort of maybe overly simplistic way, and I apologize, I'm not a psychologist or a trained, anything. I'm basically a social scientist I've studied, but I do like to think about psychology, and I do like to think about people and humanism in a very simple way. So I've tried to basically break this down. And forgive me if it's a bit provocative and blunt, but I've tried to communicate it so that it can be accessible and understood to students. So what is desire? When I was growing up in New York, I was told that there's three basic things that a young person can want. Money, power, respect. In short, some people want to be rich, some people want power, some people want to be famous, right? So that's obvious, that's accepted. What's another big aspect of desire? Right? Sex. You know, sex sells. So again, it's something which, what's the first thing you think of when you think of desire? Carnal desire. You know, all these bad things. So at least that's what I think of, that all human beings have these desires. Can we accept it? What do we make of it? How do we think about it? That's what I want to put out there. Now, also when you're thinking about the topic of desire and what do different human beings want, the question of psychology. You know, we all know about different moods. You can be happy, angry, sad. That affects how you think. But if you just go ahead one slide, just go next. Some of you guys may have heard about personality type. You know, this is a very basic sort of metric. I would encourage you guys to look this up. Different people have different personalities. So if you're an idealist, or Gandhiji, what was his desire? He had very noble desires, right? He wanted something for his country. What was the desire of maybe one of the artisans? Creativity. So it's kind of what you value, maybe. You know, what is it that's important to you? Is rationality important? Is security important? And finally, you just go ahead and one more slide. It's also important to realize that all of this stuff that we're talking, all of us are sitting here in this room, we're all very fortunate, we're all kind of, you know, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the larger sort of scenario that we operate in, desire is also a function of what you already have, right? So a guy who has no food, no clothing, shelter, nothing, his desire is just to have that basic stuff, right? Once you have that first level of income, then they talk about safety needs, then psychological needs, then social needs. So this actually gets us to the point that I want to think about destiny, right? We're fortunate that we can actually sit here and talk about desire. But what about those people at the bottom of the economic pyramid? So we all know about the economic pyramid in India. So this is just the actual numbers and stats. I'm not going to take you through all of this. It's just something to think about. But what about all the people sitting there at the bottom? And specifically, India is actually going through a change now. So India is no longer kind of a poor nation. I think it would be much more accurate to call us a middle income nation. And if you look at some of the numbers here, you can see that something like 50% of the population of this country, to be more precise, 470 million people, are now considered in the emerging middle. So it's not, this is kind of middle class, lower middle class, upper middle class, but this is really what's happening in India. So what is our destiny as individuals, as people? I would like for you guys to start thinking of that in an integrated way. Your destiny is not alone, right? You're born into a certain family, you're born into a certain economic group, you're born into a certain country. So are you proud of that or are you disappointed in that? So I think our destiny and our desire can be linked in that way. And then of course finally, speaking of our country, getting through religion, you know, this was mentioned before as well. Of course we can't talk about destiny without also appreciating and at least acknowledging the idea of, you know, karma. That can be defined in different ways. What you do in your current life determines your future evolution of your soul. So you should be good. And of course, it's not a bad idea, but then the associated idea, which is quite bad if I can say, or dangerous, which is the idea of caste or communism, or social hierarchies, which is something which is built into our system, right? So people often in India will say that, look, this is my destiny. It's my destiny to be poor, or it's my destiny to be rich, because that's just what my father was. Now the young people of India, I think, are fantastic because they reject this notion, right? Many people in India reject this notion, but especially young people. And all of us know about the demographic dividend and how many young people there are in India. But I think one fact that sometimes gets overlooked is that the demographic dividend is actually very much skewed towards North India. The last 20, 30 years have seen the demographic dividend occur in places like Kerala, Gujarat, Maharashtra, other states, which are, I can say this, high growth states. In the next 15, 20 years, something like 60 to 90% of the growth in the addition of the workforce is going to come from the 5 of these equal states. So this is exactly, you know, where we're afraid about right now. The domain that you all come from, that we all come from, this is a much more important issue.
This is sort of the crux of the debate. Some of you may have seen that title, and it was a bit provocative. What does that mean? So I just want to quickly mention this. New York Times did a study recently where they basically summarized 50 years of research, and they said that psychologically, we have a lot of psychologists here in this room, so I'll be curious to be introduced. They said that there used to be 3 different groups: children, so 20, adults, from 20 to 50 or something, and then older people. Then they said, wait a minute, between 20 and 50, it's a pretty big age group. This is actually 2 groups. Between 20 and something like 35, you have young adults. Young adult is a new kind of category. So what does that mean? So they said, look, there's 2 basic psychological drivers which are inherent in the mind of any young person. Now what are those drivers? The New York Times called it, or the psychologists called it, your career, and then the search for intimacy, or how you figure out your life partner, or if you can put it in a more crude way, naukri or chokri, the personal life and your income. So all young people all over the world have to deal with this issue, right? And this is not just elites, this is not just middle class people, this is not just rich people in America and India, even people who are having child marriages. A person, like my business partner, right? I started as a gentleman called Arvind Kavadia, who's coming from a very different background from me. Now, Arvind had a child marriage. Arvind, when I had a child marriage, he was married at 18 years old, okay? Arvind was asked by his father to not go to college, not asked, that's a nice way of putting it. He was taken out of school and put in the family business, which is managing the arts and crafts business, right? So a lot of such people, these 2 choices get taken away from them. They don't get that time to figure out what should be their career. They don't get that time to figure out what is their search for intimacy, and all of that. So this is something very, very important to remember, that this is a true psychological theory, and all young people are thinking about this stuff. So you can't run away from it. So getting paid, I think, is the obvious part. All of you understand the importance of jobs, education, services, technology, skill development. That's a thing. I want to focus on the other part. What does this mean? This issue of gender, I think it was just mentioned as well that Mr. Gomes in an extremely detailed way. I think it's the most critical issue affecting our society. For one, the getting paid part, it's not in my hands, it's not in our hands, right? Those of us who are entrepreneurs, job creators, people who are working, we can do our little bit, but this is really something for the government, for the society to do. They have to save the country and give them jobs. What about the cultural part? This has nothing to do with government. This is what's happening in our families, what's happening in our homes, how are we dealing with each other, right? It covers a multitude of issues. Relations towards women, we talk about security of women, women in the workplace, cup panchayats, female decide, LGBT issues. So we strongly feel that this is a sign that something is wrong in the society. And relations between people truly are to be improved. This is the most basic signal of it. So I just want to show you a short 1-minute video on this issue of gender, which tries to explain what does this really mean. It's a story of the life of a girl in India from her birth till when she becomes a mom, and it just tries to show you what it means to be a girl in India.
राजू अपना लंच खा
मेरा खाना क्या है? दादा, मेरा खाना आपका तैयार नहीं है?
इसकी तो जल्दी शादी कर देनी चाहिए।
सदा सुखी रहो।
तेरे बाप ने कुछ दहेज भी नहीं दिया, चल जल्दी से खोता दे दे।
बेटा है होना चाहिए।
लड़का है या लड़की?
फिक्र मत करो बेटा, सब भगवान के हाथ में छोड़ो।
So you get an idea, you know, that these are a lot of very, very powerful issues. And just to give you the context of where that came from, we do a lot of work with different NGOs, work in these fields. So we had a lot of them come together for gender, sexuality and rights at What's Up Bharat. So this was our attempt to try and explain to these NGOs that you need to connect with the other side of the audience. I'm going to be a little bit more blunt. Many of these NGOs comprise exclusively of women, and they spend a lot of their time talking about that. Look, you know, the men of Delhi need to be explained that, you know, that they behave in a better way. Women should be able to wear whatever they want, and so forth. Of course, I agree with that. But they're only discussing amongst themselves, and they're only kind of yelling and complaining. And if you talk to policemen are the most important resource or stakeholders in this. I talk to policemen all the time in Moscow village, and all of them will tell you the exact opposite of what, you know. So you need to get them in a room together, and unless you do that, nothing is going to happen. So this is what we feel, that real dialogue needs to happen between the genders. People need to talk about these issues. And as I mentioned earlier, that this is how social boundaries are going to be broken. This is not an issue just for the elites. This is very much an issue that affects all of us. And if you actually work on this, this is how our society can actually be connected. And this is, as I said, stop talking about people as if they're rich, they're poor, they're medium, they're Hindu, they're Muslim, they're Christian, they're black, white, yellow, green, blue, purple, orange. This only divides people. The correct way of thinking about it, including people, as we figured out, was if you're not a 9-to-5 corporate, stooge, what are you going to be? What are your choices in your life? अगर आप एक नॉर्मल जॉब नहीं करने वाले हैं, आप जिंदगी में कुछ इंटरेस्टिंग करना चाहते हैं, कुछ बनना चाहते हैं, आप क्या कर सकते हो? मेरे हिसाब से आपके पास सिर्फ 3 choices हैं, right? Some people are creative. I want to make a movie. I want to make a painting. I'm an artist. I want to do something with my life. Some people are intellectual, right? They can be a writer. They can be a teacher. There's some ideas that they want to share with people. And some people can be entrepreneurs. You know? Now what is common amongst all three? All three of these folks are taking a risk. None of them is getting a payment in the short term. But if they do well, these are the people who are famous, who are successful. The things, whatever, the Vikram said, Steve Jobs. But after decades and decades of hard work, you know? So it's just something to keep in mind. When you meet an artist, when you meet a writer, when you meet an entrepreneur, always remember, this is a very important thing that unites them. That these are the actual motivated people of our society. And finally, just to conclude, I know this is a bit of a scattered kind of thing, but since we are talking about social change, one very important thing that you must understand when you think about the destiny of India is what are the issues that you want to talk about. We're often jumping from issue to issue. One of the ideas behind that gender thing was to show you that all of these different issues are linked under gender. When you talk about so many of those things that we talk about. Similarly, under governance, we have so many things. You have India against corruption, national governance, national politics, local governance, which is so important. It's a systemic kind of effort. Similarly, environment. So it's only through a series of discussions, which happen over days, months, weeks, years, and a collection of effort. Someone is talking about water, someone is talking about land, someone is talking about the air, someone is talking about something else. Only that stuff starts happening together, and it's aggregated under an environment initiative, and the real insights come out. And the final slide is, this is what we're proposing to do about it. This is what What's Up Bharat basically is. So it's basically a database that says, on all of these questions, on all of these issues, we're going to create questions and surveys. What do people think about women, about different religions, about different social issues? You answer those questions, and then you get the data yourself. You can see the charts, the results, and actually see what Indians or different people are saying, and analyze it. So this is this is kind of my views on this topic in a nutshell. I apologize for sort of going through it in a bit of a very fast-paced way, but I just want to put these ideas out there. And if you'll indulge me for one more minute, I do have one final video, which I wanted to show you. Just go ahead on the slide. And guys in the back, can I ask everyone to stand up, please? And the reason for that discussion, what is our destiny? What is our desire? And just listen to the words of the Father of the Nation.